Welcome everyone. Dennis Mulryan produced this short presentation as part of First Church in Sterling's Climate Change Dialogue Group, whose mission is to learn how best to communicate the challenges presented by a warming planet, and offer ways individuals can act to solve the problem. In her book, Saving Us, Katharine Hayhoe describes a spectrum of believing in climate change, ranging from those who are alarmed, concerned and cautious, to those who are disengaged, doubtful and dismissive. Upon further examination of individual situations, the group found the relationship between believing in climate change and taking action is not so simple. To illustrate this more varied landscape of individual behavior, we rotate the current belief scale to one axis, and then add a second axis, to represent an individual's propensity to take action. We then add a grid defining the primary regions of belief versus action. In the lower left quadrant, we find our primary focal point for change, specifically those who are doubtful or disengaged from the problem. We don't invest effort in the entrenched dismissives who likely will never change their minds. The objective is to engage these individuals in a dialogue, connecting climate change to the things they value, and convince them to be concerned, if not alarmed. Give ourselves a pat on the back if we accomplish this goal. However, convincing people to believe is necessary, but not sufficient. We also need to motivate people to act, by overcoming blocking factors, like feelings of impotence, or the assumption that others are solving the problem. The pathway to action is unique to every individual. It would be premature to declare victory at this point. We observe some action takers becoming discouraged and giving up after learning their sustainability efforts are undermined by factors outside their control. For instance, take the homeowner who diligently sorts recyclables, but gives up after finding out that supply chain issues are forcing those same recyclables into a landfill. This 2 steps forward, 1 step back effect points out that climate solutions depending on a chain of events are only as strong as their weakest link. Let's turn our attention to the lower right quadrant of our grid. We wonder if there are any who act without believing? Behold, we do find a number of natural actors living climate-friendly lifestyles. These include indigenous peoples and sustenance farmers throughout the world. Some of these peoples are finding new relevance, as in the Aboriginal Australians teaching us their 1,000-year-old stewardship for preventing forest fires. Thus far, we have followed the proscribed route to creating climate actors, specifically, convincing skeptics, and giving them agency to act. However, there may be an alternative path, as illustrated in Katharine Hayhoe's story of how one climate change denier was transformed. In addition to denying climate change, this individual took pride in being thrifty. When presented with how much solar could cut energy costs, his response was, "It's a financial no-brainer to get solar power." This example of opportunistic action shows that unbelievers may still act if given the right incentive. Lastly, we note that one important group is missing, namely, our children and grandchildren. For it is they who will continue the fight against climate change and suffer the consequences. Fortunately, there is good news. The kids are already tuned in, are eager to act, and are not happy with how adults are handling the situation. Depolarized education will be key to raising future generations of climate actors before they become locked into tribal echo chambers. In summary, the expanded view of various personas and motivations yields several observations and opportunities. First, we have observed a varied landscape of personas, each with unique challenges to behavioral change. Perhaps a database of case studies can be created of different personas, illustrating best practices and changing minds. Second, we find that chain of event solutions are only as strong as their weakest link. We could build trust by certifying that recycling centers are part of a complete solution. Next, there is evidence that staunch deniers will change, if presented with an economic benefit. We could seek opportunities to make the case that changes will improve their bottom line. Finally, educating youth may be the biggest opportunity to save the planet. We need to work to mainstream climate education, via citizen scientist clubs, integrated curricula, and the incorporation of climate change in standardized testing. Thank you for viewing this presentation on extending the climate change dialogue approach. Feel free to email any feedback and ideas you may have, to climate@fcsterling.org.